My name is Katie Gully. I'm a regional program manager with the Blue-Green Alliance. And today we are proud to release a new report called Repairing Minnesota, Creating Good Jobs While Preparing Our Systems for Climate Change. This report identifies key industries and infrastructure projects leveraging investments to create significant job creation opportunities for Minnesota, and found investments to repair infrastructure in our state could create or sustain more than 114,000 jobs each year throughout the economy. The full report is available on our website, www.bluegreenalliance.org/repairmn, and it's available online today. Please check it for a full breakdown of jobs numbers by sector and the methodology used to get them. The basic systems we rely on every day, such as transit, roads and bridges, electricity, and wastewater systems, are in need of repair. This is an opportunity to create jobs, prevent the effects of climate change, and better protect our communities. Infrastructure is the backbone of America. Communities across the country rely on these systems every day to move goods, transmit power, deliver drinkable water, and provide the means to communicate. These systems seem invisible when they function properly, but the impacts of infrastructure failure are immediately and devastatingly clear. Our failure to repair our infrastructure is a vicious circle. As more and more systems fail due to age and chronic underinvestment, the inefficiencies created increase the impacts we have on climate change, making it worse. Climate change in turn brings severe weather, including floods, droughts, and superstorms, which put even more strain on communities and their vulnerable infrastructure systems. Repairing Minnesota means repairing our infrastructure as well as addressing climate change. Overall, more than an estimated 114,000 jobs could be created across Minnesota by making the much-needed investments in our basic systems. This includes the number of direct jobs from impacted sectors like construction laborers, equipment operators, and maintenance workers, as well as indirect jobs from industries that serve those sectors and supply chain, including the manufacturing of materials, components, and equipment. Repairing Minnesota's infrastructure creates good jobs and positively affects business productivity, competitiveness, and efficiency, saving money, energy, and other resources, as well as reducing greenhouse gas emissions that lead to climate change. When it comes to infrastructure, we all have a dog in this fight. From the economic opportunities to the environmental and public health benefits, we all want these investments to help our communities around the state. And now I'd like to introduce Senator Scott Dibble.
Well, thanks, Katie, and thank you to the Blue-Green Alliance for asking me to be a part of this event today. One of the basic things we do as a community is we build those things that we all need and that we all share in order to be successful as individuals and families in our personal pursuits, in our jobs, in our civic lives. And by extension, we can be successful as a community and as a state, which then in turn creates even greater opportunities in shared prosperity. So these basic things that we all come together and pay for are those things like educating our youngsters, funding basic research, keeping us safe, and building our infrastructure, which we're talking about today. These are also known as utility services, basic fundamental services. And of course, it is far more efficient for all of us to get together, combine our efforts, combine our money to keep our community clean, to create mobility, to bring water and power to where it is needed. Think, for example, who's going to build a road to their own front door? Who's going to build a pipe to take away wastewater from our homes and put it where it's needed to be put to be cleaned and returned to the environment? And just imagine for a second those places that are the most economically successful and then those that struggle to deliver opportunity to their own citizens. Even just inside our own country, think about those states that are relatively successful and those that aren't. I'm guessing you're thinking about the successful states, much like Minnesota has been for a number of years, where there are great roads, great transit, great schools, great overall quality of life and infrastructure, clean lakes, clean rivers. Shifting gears for just a second, we're also talking about climate change, or some better express it as climate disruption. It's real and it's here. We're living it now. We need to do all we can do, of course, to slow it down, maybe even hopefully reverse it over time. But here we sit. Think about the incredible devastation and tragedy in the Philippines with the super typhoon and the inability of those communities to withstand that storm and to recover from it. Poor governance, a weak social contract, a weak social safety net, and an utter lack of sufficient communications, water, waste services, transportation infrastructure. The misery continues to be compounded for the folks who survived that tragedy. Just in Minnesota over the last few years, we've seen spots of droughts interspersed with incredible storms and devastation and devastating floods. And this isn't going to change. Resiliency, reinforcement, flexibility in our infrastructure, our built environment, and our ability to respond is needed. The American Society of Civil Engineers tells us in their nationwide infrastructure grade that we're getting a failing grade. And Minnesota's no exception, giving us a D-. And the relative costs then that we bear as individuals and families in congestion and poor roads and damaged cars is borne by all of us individually. The Governor's Transportation Advisory Committee report shows that we're not even keeping up with the need, much less positioning ourselves for the future. The Itasca Group, likewise, in their return on investment report, showed how other metro areas are simply running away from us in the level of investment and their ability to attract businesses to their areas. So the problem is immediate and it's acute, but the opportunity is so enormous, and that's the good news in the report that's being presented today. In solving these problems, we create jobs, greater success for families, our communities, and our state. And I'll let Cheryl Clark, when she comes up, maybe talk about some of the numbers, but the numbers of jobs that Katie referred to are very, very real. And that's exciting. That's an exciting opportunity. Right now we're seeing an incredible campaign come together across the state, multi-sector, a very, very broad-based coalition with, I think, over 90 signers now, engaging the people of Minnesota on the question of making those key investments in transportation, adding to that mobility, that access to opportunities, in turn building communities and neighborhoods that work for everyone and bolster our quality of life and preserve and enhance our environment. It's formerly known as Move Minnesota, and the focus is not on how much it's going to cost, but how much it's going to cost if we don't do these things, and how much return we'll see on our investment if we do these things. I was just in Denver last week. I'm telling you, Denver is on the move. It is incredible to see the kinds of investments. It's tangible as you move through the neighborhoods of Denver and in downtown Denver, the level of activity and excitement and vitality that's going on. We're competing with places like Denver, Portland, Salt Lake City, those places that are making those investments. We have to do the same in Minnesota. And we can absolutely do this. We can do this in 2014 if Minnesotans weigh in and that their legislators know, our legislative leadership know, and our governor know that this is what they want for themselves and their family and their future. Thank you. With that, I'm going to introduce a very good friend, one of my mentors, former leader of the Minnesota Senate, now representing the Sierra Club, John Hotton.
Thank you, Senator Dibble, and thanks, Katie, for outlining not only the problem but the solution. My name is John Hottinger. I've worked with the Sierra Club for the last 6 years on their executive committee, chairing that committee for a couple of years, and I used to be a legislator. Climate change is real. We've talked about it being a threat, certainly at the Sierra Club, for many years. But now not only does it continue to be a threat, but it's real. And it's having impacts directly in the lives of various Minnesotans in many ways. This report outlines not only a proposal for the infrastructure that continues to fight the progress of climate change, but also starts making the transition to the effects we're surely going to see, and make sure that we have a way to deal with the people who lose their jobs and the communities that lose their businesses in that transition. We've had climate change existing and temperature rising for over 70 years now. We've had jobs lost and opportunities lost because of that. We've allowed our infrastructure to grow inefficient and old. I mean, how much money do we spend each year repairing roads yet again? repaving roads yet again, while we have to struggle to make the kind of transit choices that will help consumers, taxpayers, Minnesotans, have the real opportunity to choose the best opportunity for getting where they need to go. That's what this report suggests. This report also outlines ways to make sure those workers who are displaced by the changing environment and the changing economy and built into the new economy that can be created if the proposals in this area are adopted. So we have a bigger task from the Sierra Club perspective, not only continuing to fight those things that make our environment more and more damaged by bad infrastructure, but also by making sure we can help facilitate that transition and in the end help change the opportunities for people and communities moving forward. If you travel, you can't help but notice the changes that are taking place as a result of climate change. A few years ago, I had the opportunity of being in Europe and went to Austria and in the Alps where people ski, right? If you go to the ski hills in the Alps, you walk up on grass from the bottom of the ski hill past the area where the lifts used to take the skiers. The ski lifts take people up still below the snow ground. And what you have to go through as you do that walk is all sorts of running water from the melting glaciers. We've all heard about the impact of the poles of the ice. But if you listen to Mark Seeley from the University of Minnesota, who spoke at the Climate Change Conference a couple of weeks ago, you find out those same kinds of impacts, although less visible and less dramatic, are impacting Minnesota. If we don't provide the improved infrastructure, which Jim Oberstar fought so hard with in Congress, but now would have a new tool in terms of transitioning to better jobs, in terms of transitioning to a better environment, in addition to ensuring that we can make the best use of railroad efficiency, ensuring that we can give people options to have a cleaner way to get to work or get to play. We have the opportunity now, and in fact, the necessity. I'm a new grandfather for the first time, so the rhetoric of future generations is much more real all of a sudden. We have an opportunity and an obligation to those future generations to make sure we put a halt to the growth of man-made contributions to climate change, to make sure that as we transition to the changes that will have to be made, we limit the damage being done to the people and the taxpayers and the businesses of Minnesota. Good transportation is good business. And that we also make sure that we, looking forward, find ways to mitigate the damages as they continue to accumulate. Sierra Club thanks BGA for the great work they've done. We support it as we do the President's climate change agenda. And by doing that, we think we can end up with not only a better country, but certainly a better Minnesota that reflects the kind of people we are looking forward, not just backwards. Thank you very much. Oops. And now my job is to introduce Pete Paris. Pete has been a strong advocate for the efforts to get labor and business and the environmental communities together to fight climate change. He works with the Sheet Metal Workers Union. Pete?
Thank you, John. My name is Pete Paris. I'm with the Sheet Metal Workers Local Number 10. Minnesota's infrastructure systems are in urgent need of significant repair. Our state roads, bridges, water, wastewater, transit, energy, and communication systems are in need of increased investments to become efficient, safe, and productive for Minnesotans. A well-maintained infrastructure is also more efficient, saving energy, money, natural resources, as well as reducing greenhouse gases emissions that lead to climate change. In addition to repairing America's infrastructure, creates good jobs and other economic benefits such as higher productivity and increased competitiveness. Commercial buildings like hospitals, data centers, skyscrapers represent 36% of our total energy consumption, 13% of drinking water use and waste, on average 30% of the energy, contributing 18% of U.S. carbon emissions. By investing in energy efficient improvements for schools, grocery stores, hospitals, apartments, appliances, industrial facilities, we can take average of the easiest way to achieve significant energy savings and create good jobs in manufacturing, construction, and other sectors. The job creation potential of these other investments is too significant to ignore. More than an estimated 114,000 jobs could be created across Minnesotan economy by making much-needed investments in our basic infrastructure systems. Failure to act now will be more costly in the long term. We cannot afford to continue putting our communities at risk because we fail to take necessary steps to limit pollution, make our homes and businesses more efficient, and prepare for infrastructure for the reality of climate change. And without action, this will continue to get worse. By investing now in our infrastructure, we can cut down on inefficiencies and costs of disaster relief, and so doing while creating and maintaining good jobs for working people, reducing carbon emissions, hopefully preventing the worst consequences of climate change. The infrastructure impacts all of us. Every day and almost every moment of our day, it is the backbone of our society. Whether we're driving to work, changing our phone, charging our phones, grabbing something from the refrigerator, taking a vacation, there's infrastructure behind it all. Fixing our infrastructure will create and sustain good jobs needed right now. We need to put pressure on leadership and at all levels of government to repair Minnesota and America, to create family-sustaining jobs, reduce the pollution driving climate change, and ensure our communities are safe and healthy. Thank you very much, and with that, I'll turn it back over to Terrell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'd like to say if the train was all the way to St. Cloud, I would have gotten here faster. And I figure with the transportation chair, my good friend here, it's good to remind him about that. I apologize. I got here, I think, 2 minutes after you guys started. So I'm excited to be here. And listening to each of you, you have such great examples of things they have worked on and things that we've seen in communities. And just before we turn it over to questions and answers, you may have already heard this. We were in Duluth yesterday and St. Cloud this morning. We'll be going to Rochester next. And thinking about each of the communities and just what they've been trying to do and what's happened with the cut resources from the federal level, including loans, or what's happened from the state and what communities are trying to do. I'm sure it's been said, but these are the things that we believe are just going to happen every day. They're part of our lives. And it's catastrophic when they don't happen, kind of like the flood that happened in Duluth last summer, or when it happened in Rushford, or thinking about the opportunities since we're in St. Paul, and again was in Duluth yesterday, that with the infrastructure, with the streets being torn apart and preparing for the central corridor, taking advantage and adding district energy into that so that energy needs would be met as well. There's some initial investment, but there's going to be savings to ratepayers and to consumers in the future. Duluth is going through that now. One of the other examples that was talked about this morning is St. Cloud State has another bonding proposal. It's the bonding years, our infrastructure year, right? Those are important ones, but frankly, the bonding bills can't go far enough to deal with our infrastructure needs even within our communities there. So right now, they are doing a campus-wide energy audit. They're partnering with one of the energy service cooperatives to figure out ways that they can make their buildings more efficient, deal with some of their asset preservation, and they will be paying it back through their energy savings. So we're hoping as we move forward that we're looking at a lot of different tools. This report highlights those 114,000 jobs that we can either keep or grow, things that will help us across our state and keep us and our country competitive. But there are a variety of tools that will be looked at by the legislature or the federal government moving forward in terms of how to create that investment. And we think that's really critical, as Senator Hottinger said, former Majority Leader Hottinger said, it's important to be moving forward, not backwards. So any questions for anybody here? We've got some great people.
You've got a pretty extensive might be a Christmas list. It's up to $70 billion. What are your priorities on this list? If you have to pick which one you want for Christmas, seriously, what are your top priorities if you can't get everything on the list?
Well, a couple things. If you think about it, we're talking about what we need to do over the next 20 years. We're not talking about what needs to happen next year. And some of the things, so for example, one of the things that will be, as usual, part of the bonding bill is looking at wastewater treatment needs in certain communities. When that facility is done, they have maintenance needs, just general maintenance needs for a period of years, then there will probably need to be significant repairs, and then they will probably need another one. So it is not like all of these things would be needed at one time in one place. And like with what happens with our state as we approach an infrastructure or bonding year, there are components to each of those that are done. So I don't look at this as a Christmas list so much as these are just part of our everyday function. And if we start committing the resources, federal, state, local, and private, it's not just the state. The dollars that are needed are not just state dollars. Then we're going to be able to start making headway. Clearly, there's going to be a continued significant effort to deal with our transportation infrastructure this year. We think it's important as we're talking about that, and I believe Senator Dibble would agree because he works on all of these pieces, that we have to keep working on our energy infrastructure, some of which we worked on last year. We have to be working on partnering with our local communities on their needs. But, you know, again, this is not just the state's responsibility, it's multiple players' responsibility. And some of these things can be done in terms of low interest rate loans, which have been drying up. We've got the ability as a state or the federal government certainly could do that, again, partnering with local communities. So I think there's no, you've heard me say this before, it feels like a few years ago, we have no silver bullet here. But the priorities, these are things, this is knowing that when we turn on that faucet that we can drink the water, that our waste is going to be treated appropriately, that our lakes won't be polluted, that we can drive down the road or over those bridges without them falling down, that we can get real transit. Scott was talking about Denver. I was in Phoenix recently, and they're moving as well. You know, these are the kinds of things that have to have the attention paid for now, but it's over 20 years. And so I just think it's important. This investment isn't all about right this minute.
Just to follow up,
Okay, that's what,
are there any of these that are more critical that have to be done sooner than later?
I would liken it to, this may sound that it's not a yes or no. It depends upon where you live and what the needs are in that region. Like MnDOT having, you know, their 20-year plan. Our communities have their 20-year plan. We know that we're going to have a variety of power plants retiring over the next 20 to 30 years. I mean, we have to plan for those things, and we make priorities within that. So I think that's how you make that prioritization. I have every confidence, though, that the legislators, our former colleagues, will be able, with the governor, to make a lot of these decisions about how best to get the resources out. But the priorities are based on where the needs are and where we can also really bring forward that economic investment. So, I mean, that's how we've tended to approach things, and that's worked pretty well for us as a state. A part that's gotten hard is the federal government hasn't necessarily been the kind of partner that it has been in the past, and that's short-sighted. So we certainly are calling on Congress to get moving while Minnesota's trying to.
How about you, Senator Dibble, Chair of Transportation Committee? How much of this would you like to delve into next session?
Well, I think the transportation piece is certainly, I can answer your question, Bill. Transportation is a priority. First, I just want to step back just a little bit and say some of these things come about through different ways. So, for example, some of the energy investments, of course, we partner with utilities, you know, and so some of that comes, you know, we'll not directly be building, you know, better transmission and some of that sort of thing, but we create a regulatory pathway, or we can, you know, take advantage of public financing options and alternatives. Talking about our federal partners, you know, I don't think that Congress is going to get its act together anytime soon, and we do have to look to ourselves as states, and I'm a part of a larger national conversation via the Conference of State Legislatures to talk about how we do more for ourselves or in partnership with each other, create more efficiency out of our systems and the like. But, you know, a place where Congress could perhaps act is creating this national infrastructure bank, so that, you know, which would be kind of a revolving loan fund for wastewater infrastructure, clean water infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, and that sort of thing, that would replenish itself. That gives us that time advantage. There's so much to be saved from building stuff that's needed now versus waiting 20 years or stretching it out and stringing it out. You save direct costs in terms of inflation, construction inflation, and you get the benefit of the economic improvements that infrastructure brings, and then you can, you know, pay that off over time. These are capital assets that are appropriately paid off over time, and you probably end up ahead of the game because things come in a lot less expensive the sooner you build them, and you get that economic benefit. But getting more directly to your question, I absolutely think that we can and should pursue passing a comprehensive transportation bill in 2014. I know that some folks need some persuading, and that's the task, frankly, of the campaign that's come together to make that case, this Move Minnesota campaign.
Have you lost some of the momentum behind another gas tax increase with the budget surplus?
Oh, I don't, keep in mind the budget surpluses, surpluses come, surpluses go, that sort of thing. They're kind of viewed as a one-time sort of thing. We're building for the. No, I mean, when we're in deficit, it's like, no one can afford to raise taxes. We're in surplus. We don't need, I mean, the argument is cut both ways. And we just need to make the case for that long-term sustained investment. I don't think it changes the dynamic or the equation at all.
And how is that dynamic right now for a gas tax?
I think it's building, and we got this campaign that's really growing. I mean, it's pretty impressive. Like I said, over 90 signers, organizational signatories to the campaign, and they're all doing a lot of work with their own spheres of influence, and then kind of more broadly with the unified campaign. Every day brings news of another coalition that's coming on board, or another organizational member or coalition member coming on board. So, I'd say keep a close eye on the efforts of Move Minnesota over the coming weeks, and see what they're able to present in the way of building a dynamic rolling into February 25th.
How are you doing on business interests backing this effort?
Well, the Itasca group, they've been fantastic. They're great actors. The regional chambers are great. St. Paul, Minneapolis chamber, the regional centers and their chambers, individual business leaders coming forward saying we have huge logistical needs. It's a fright, and that's real money. If I can't get my goods to market, that's real money. That has real cost, and I can measure that, and I can tell you exactly how much. This is kind of how we did the 2008 veto override bill. Business stepped up and said, this is how much it costs if my delivery truck gets stuck in congestion. This has a real, and they're doing that.
And that actually was the example I was going to bring up when we did the last bigger transportation bill. They were one of the key people in central Minnesota to say, look, it's costing our business. We're getting a congestion tax right now. So let's do something different that helps us actually move our goods, move our people. That will bring down our costs. I want to reinforce what Scott said. Certainly from a state standpoint, the priorities in the very near future and the opportunities are passing a comprehensive transportation bill and making sure that the bonding bill it always does, contain some of these other components. Another possibility may be, Scott brought up the National Infrastructure Bank, which we think is a really great idea. There's people talking about doing that here as well. One of the things that we think could make a real difference this session, both for public entities as well as some of our industrial companies or hospitals, would be utilizing revenue bonds to have some low interest revolving loans that could help with energy efficiency. We know that that's one of the places that we can make a real difference too. So every community around our state, or at least almost every community, has a hospital or some type of a health care center, long-term care, and or a school. And let's figure out how we're doing those things now. But from a state standpoint, those are the places really where we have the opportunity, and we certainly join forces with Senator Dibble and others to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Does the legislature have a good track record of dealing with the broken infrastructure in localities? Like when local communities seek bonding money for things that don't, like a wastewater treatment plant, or is that usually?
Well, and John, you're expert in this as well. But we have, I think, what is a kind of a model in the form of the Public Facilities Authority, in developing this support for local investments, particularly in wastewater and clean water infrastructure, that's handled through financing. Sometimes it takes the support of the general fund, but it's typically supported by sewer and water fees that local communities levy, on their citizens, and it's a revolving fund, and it helps get those investments into those communities, which allow those communities to thrive in the city. We just need to do more. I mean, the list that the PFA has for wastewater infrastructure is super long, and it takes us a heck of a long time to get to everything that's needed. So we have a great model. We do really well partnering with local communities, establishing the criteria for ranking, but we could do more and faster. You come from the hinterlands where the PFA really really matters a lot.
As I remember, no, I think Senator Dibble made a very appropriate response. There's a lot of demand in greater Minnesota for that kind of wastewater treatment help, and it's a growing demand and it's a severe demand. The reality is we just haven't got the enough to provide to do that. One of the efforts behind this and other environmental groups' efforts is to, or one of the messages behind that, is to let the public really truly understand the trade-offs. No one wants to raise taxes, at least that's the popular view. But people do want to have clean water. And if there's a relationship that can be demonstrated that there is harm being caused by inadequate cleaning of water, or there is a need to do a better job, I think most citizens say, well, that trade-off's okay. I'm willing to pay a little more, especially as incomes go up and hopefully, but have been going up in reality. So it's a good program that we've got in Minnesota. It's one that only lacks in the level of public support that will give it the funding it needs.
Senator, the report suggests investing $180 million a year. Do you know what we're investing now?
Oh, I still a senator?
Yes.
Right, okay. Well, I think I better, it's been a while, so
Yeah,
I think Senator
yeah.
Dibble better update that question.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number that we invest now. I
Is
can
it
find out.
$180 million?
For wastewater?
wastewater treatment?
No, I don't think so.
No, and we can get back to that
Yeah.
exact number. If you think again about what happens during the bonding bill process, among other processes, as Senator Dibble was saying, there is kind of this list, and there's a recognition of what those needs are, and depending upon how much resources there are, we're able to get there. But there's other dollars that go in there. So, you know, Hibbing's been trying to work on their next version, but if you're a community that size and it's 25 million or so, that's a lot. So there are multiple pieces that come together. A place that we've seen a lot, and I know Senator Dibble is going to continue to work on this, but in many places in greater Minnesota, local communities on their local roads have had some real challenges. That's been the part that they've been mostly responsible for. And we're going to have to keep working to figure out what are some opportunities there. But overall, the legislature and our state processes really do work well. This is really a matter of making sure we have the right resources so that we can meet those priorities.
Do you have a dollar figure of what your ask would be? Just say in the bonding bill, the governor says he's open to 950. How much of this could fit in there?
I think you said 975.
975.
Yeah. You went up. At least the Blue Green Alliance doesn't take a position on that. We do believe that the more robust opportunities we have right now to actually make these investments, the better. Low interest rate, people out of work, communities that are needing things. Some of you heard me use this example before. I'll make it quick. My mother-in-law used to love triple coupons. And she would love it particularly. She'd go out on Wednesdays, triple coupon day, grocery store. She'd love it when they paid her to buy something. In a way, we're like that right now in triple coupons. We've got the low interest rates. We've got the workforce that's ready. We have the projects that are needed. We need to make those investments.
Do you have a sense, Senator Dibble, of how much of this could come out of a bonding bill?
No, I don't. I haven't done that analysis. A significant amount. I mean, we support local roads. We can support this wastewater infrastructure, transit. That sort of thing, and the, like Terrell said, the benefit is really what we can focus on, the return on the investment. We should do an ROI analysis like Itasca has done for all of them, and some of this does show, in this report, the jobs that would result, but the real dollars out that come from the dollars in, are multiplied. So I don't know exactly how much, I haven't done the analysis of this report against the bonding bill, but, the bonding bill could definitely support a lot of this effort.
Just last week, the MNB commissioner was talking about what a great economy we have here, produces, generating the surplus. Does that undermine your argument